This is Scott again with Resilient Ecology Systems and Design. And today we're going to just have a short episode talking quickly about some of the things to consider when buying land here in northern Arizona as far as the legal side of things. So, right now I'm going through this process to get a property to develop and teach permaculture up here in northern Arizona in Coconino County outside of the Flagstaff area. And I've learned a few things about zoning and as far as doing your research and doing your homework to figure out if you can actually do permaculture at your property. If you can do all the things that you want with animal and plant interactions and stacking functions and catching energy, because really legally, for most of us here in the United States, and especially here in northern Arizona, there's going to be some restrictions with that. So the first big takeaway that I have is to look at your zoning, is to go to the county website, to look at the zoning regulations and to see what it is that you can and can't do. In Coconino County, there's a few different regulations that you're going to have regarding what kind of animals you're going to be able to have, how many animals you're going to be able to have, depending on if you're zoned general or agricultural or residential or what density even for what you're allowed to have. So all of that's important to know definitely before you put down money on a property, but even before you get emotionally invested with a property, figure out if you can even do the things that you want to do with that property. And I'll put the county website in the show notes to give you a better idea of how just general zoning can affect the legal part of what you want to do with permaculture. So beyond even zoning, there's another layer to look at on top of that as far as homeowners associations. So this is going to apply more to people who are living in the developed parts of Flagstaff, more of the so-called suburbs of Flagstaff. And it's worth looking into what restrictions your homeowners association has, because some HOAs don't allow you to keep animals. Some HOAs don't allow you to grow certain plants. The city of Flagstaff recently, and actually Coconino County recently, started a new project where most people can have, depending on if you have a small amount of grassland, a small amount of property, you can have chickens or even small goats and different animals, bees, and that they're encouraging small holders, people with sometimes less than an acre even of land, to be able to raise these animals. So it's worth going to the county website and checking out the options that you have. But an HOA can potentially be more restrictive on that and not allow you to keep those animals. So it's worth keeping in mind that these different levels of restriction. Look into the HOA documents, look into the HOA that's in the area, their governing documents, and find out what the restrictions really are. So that covers some of the big picture stuff as far as what you can do on the county. Something else to consider that I'm finding out with buying raw land is that there are restrictions on what you can do with the property if you don't have a dwelling. So the way that the county sees it, a dwelling is important. It means that you're going to live there, or someone can live there if need be. And some of the major requirements for having a dwelling is that you have some way that you have a shelter, that you have a building that's meant for dwelling, but also that you have some form of septic, some way to get rid of both gray and black water. And something that I learned that's interesting, that's worth knowing, is that even if you are looking at doing composting toilets, you're looking at doing some kind of black water option. For instance, what I want to do with my property in order to show people some like sustainability practices and just the advantages of having a composting toilet is I want to be able to turn the I want to be able to turn human waste into usable soil. And the state of Arizona actually has some great approved ways for how to do that. And there are ways to do that without having a smell, without having an odor. But even if you have a system like that, you still need a septic system. You can't just put your gray water out in Coconino County legally into irrigating your crops and then use a composting toilet and bypass the need for a septic. You still have to get that. So along with that septic goes having to get a percolation test to figure out what kind of systems your soil can support. The legal hoops that you're going to have to jump through if you're looking at getting unimproved property is figuring out your zoning restrictions, figuring out if there's any HOA restrictions, figuring out the septic situation because that's required for a dwelling. And something that's in addition to the septic is every house needs to have access to water. And for at a minimum, that's a 500-gallon cistern and then hauling water in. So even if you're planning on doing rainwater catchment, or if you're planning on holding your rainwater in an earthworks like a pond, the county doesn't recognize that as a water source unless you have a cistern. So just important things to keep in mind: cistern, septic. You're going to want to look at easements and access onto the property. Um, what that is can you get onto the property? Do you have access? Is there a road? A lot of these more rural properties are going to have private roads. Are you a member? Is your property a member of that private road so that you can use access to it? Speaking from experience with the property that I'm in the process of acquiring and developing for permaculture, this can be kind of a headache. Sometimes you have neighbors who, for a variety of reasons, just don't want you and won't allow you to use a road. So it's important working that out beforehand and figuring out a way to get access to your property so that you can build a road, because you can't have a dwelling if you don't have a road. If you can't have emergency vehicles go in, you're not going to be able to build a structure there, and you might not be able to get any sort of permits for what you need. So, those are some of the big hurdles that you can run into. There are some things that you can do to get around some of those. As far as the zoning, you can apply for conditional use permits, you can apply for variances, but really, depending on the area, that's may not be so likely to get approved, and it's really not worth banking on that in order to do what you want. As Paul Wheaton likes to say, the Department of Making You Sad can come out, and it's better to keep our things legally above board, or at least to have the major things legally above board, so that we don't end up having to pay for it later. So, as always, I welcome anyone's thoughts on this subject. If anyone has any experience that they'd like to share, or ideas or questions about the process that I'm going through right now with acquiring the property for Resilient Ecology Systems and Design, I would appreciate anyone leaving their thoughts in the comments. And I hope you have a great day.